This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Jeremy Wolf.
Well, hello, friends, family, wonderful community. We are back for another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. You know, to all those parents out there, we all know that parenting can be rather challenging. As many of you know, I have two kids myself, 11, and my daughter just turned 13. And if I'm being honest, we are going through it right now with our 13-year-old. It has been challenging, to say the least. So I was at the local Davie Cooper City Chamber of Commerce luncheon the other day, and I met our next guest, and she worked in the parenting space, and she I thought it would make a lot of sense to have her on the show and talk about what she does. I'm here with Mihaela Plugarasu. I just butchered it. I'm sorry about that. We'll get that right later. She is with Parenting Made Conscious. Mihaela, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Jeremy, and hello to everyone who's listening.
Yes. All right. So why don't we start there? Tell everybody a little bit about your business. Tell us what you do at Parenting Made Conscious.
Yes, so I am a certified parenting by connection educator. I am also a college professor. I am also a certified neuromindfulness master coach. And in the last 2.5 years, I've always trained in the Compassionate Inquiry for Professionals program with Dr. Gabor Mate. Some of your listeners will know who he is, but he is a trauma and addiction specialist, very much focused on the impact of childhood on human development. And I've been working with parents now for over 6 years. I am also a parent myself. My son is also 13 and a half. And I believe it's the most important work that any adult can put their attention into.
It is definitely the most important and, like I said earlier, the most challenging. And I am familiar with Dr. Gabor Mate's work, and a lot of what you do. I was reading a little bit about how your approach weaves psychology, neuroscience, spirituality. These are all things that have been a big part of my life over the last 5 or 6 years with my own spiritual and personal growth development journey. So a lot of this stuff has been on my radar. It's so funny. The more work I seem to do in my own life, it's not translating to my child. So I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as parents because our kids mirror what we do. But at some level, our kids become independent agents, and they're making their own decisions now. So the struggles that I'm having with my daughter, it's perplexing me because, again, I'm doing a lot of work in my own life, but it seems like it's just not translating into her life. And I'm trying to kind of skirt this line and walk this balancing act. And I'm having a lot of issues. Are there any tips or tricks that you can give me, being that this is what you do and you have a 13-year-old? What can I start doing at home to create some balance in my own situation?
Yeah, so teenagers are a very special demographic.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you. I think teenagers are presenting us, the parents, with very profound mirrors of the things that we have not resolved for ourselves yet. Right?
Our unresolved issues, they mirror that back to us. and it triggers us even more because we know these are things that are unresolved in us that need work on, and we've been avoiding the work. So it's
yes. So I want to invite parents who have either toddlers or teenagers. And by the way, I forgot to mention that I also wrote a book called Conscious Parenting of Your Toddler for parents with young children under the age of 10. But toddlers and teenagers, they present very difficult challenges for us parents because they are both in the process of individuation. So, of course, at different levels. a toddler is just discovering the world for the first time in their life, that small little brain gets the perception that I am a different person from my mom, particularly, but from my mom and dad. So they start exploring and they start pushing back and saying no. And that's the beginning of the process of individuation. But they're still very dependent on the adult in their lives, where the teenager, they're continuing their process of individuation and complete and total radical separation from mom and dad. And they are independent to some degree. They can really walk out if they don't want to continue the conversation. So they are letting us know that they don't need us as much as they did before. The reason, even though they still do need us, the reason teenagers are such a challenge is because they are the product of our parenting. So if a toddler is a very young child and maybe he's 2 or 3 or 4, there is nothing really, there's no history there. We can't really blame anyone for whatever the dynamic is. He's a baby, she's a baby, she's just growing up, and
Yeah.
we're there to mold them, and we don't know where this journey is taking us. But by the time they're 13, they're our product. There is nowhere to hide, because that's our result. That's the outcome. So in my coaching with the parents whom I work with, I emphasize to the nth degree the importance of parenting in 0 to 7, because that is the foundation of the pyramid. If we want to think about life or parenting as a pyramid, let's think about the base of that pyramid. That's what we do in 0 to 7. And then we can still correct things after 7, because the brain of the child is still very, very, very moldable and shapeable. But after the age of 12, there is something in the human brain that closes off. And that's why teenagers are so difficult. Now, I have to say, parents who have been doing conscious, present, responsible parenting in 0 to 12, they have an okay time with their teenagers after the age of 12, 13, because the base is very strong. The relationship is solid. There is trust. There is respect. There is communication. It's a safe place in which both the child and the parent can make mistakes and they still come back together. But that takes 12 years of very hard work in the beginning.
Wow. So that really hit me on a fundamental level, what you just said. It makes so much sense how once they turn into teenagers, as a parent, when you're seeing them have these shortcomings, it's like a reflection, like you said, of the work that you've done, or the lack of work that you've done. And it feeds into that feeling in your own mind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm having a tough time with this, Mihaela, simply because I am struggling right now with my own child, and a lot of this stuff is hitting so deeply on an emotional level. So you have to forgive me if I'm a little bit scatterbrained. There's a lot of emotions surrounding this issue for me right now.
No, I'm actually very happy that we're going in this conversation so natural and fluid and unscripted and real, because it is real for all the parents. I mean, I've been parenting my son in the most trained and educated and conscious. And I mean, I went back to school just to learn to be a present parent for him ever since he was born. Even though my base training is a teacher, I discovered very quickly that I am not equipped to be the parent that I want to be. And I had the training, I had the degrees, I had the understanding of early childhood development, and I I didn't feel equipped. So I went back to school. I started training and studying, and I never stopped since then. So it's good for the listeners to see that whatever they're doing, they are good people, they are well intentioned, and they don't know all the answers. Nobody does. But that doesn't exonerate us from the responsibility of getting educated and looking for help. You know, working with someone who can help us become better at protecting the relationship is not shameful. It's courageous. Because I don't know if you want to go into the bigger layer of societal destruction that we're in right now, with teenagers, with young adults, with Gen Zers. I mean, I teach college level. I can see at a societal level the byproduct of modern parenting, and it doesn't look good, and it's not the children's fault. So there's so many layers. We talk about devices and smartphones, and how soon parents make that available to their young children, toddlers. We go to restaurants and we see families sitting down, and a 2-year-old with an iPad, because the parents believe that that's what it takes to keep them quiet. So there's so many layers to this. What I want to invite parents to reflect on is, we're all good people. Parents are good people. We have good intentions, but modern life is the most difficult time in human history to raise children. So for that reason, we all need help.
100%. And I was reading a little bit on your website. You describe your work as conscious parenting, starting with self-parenting. And this another thing that really hits home to me, because as a parent that's having issues with my children, if I sit there and beat myself up over this, and I say, and I look at this as, oh, this is just a failure in my own ability to be a parent. Well, that doesn't help anything. Now I'm being a bad parent to myself, and I'm creating a situation where I'm just teaching my children that if things are going wrong, then you just beat yourself up over it. And you really got to give yourself some grace in these situations. To you, what does self-parenting mean? And why is it so central to be raising kids in today's society?
Okay, yes, it's a very important question, and I'll get back to that in 1 second. I didn't want to leave our listeners hanging on your first question, which was, give me some tips of what I can do home right now, right?
Yeah.
If I have a teenager, but even if you have a 10-year-old at home, if you have a 7-year-old, they are already pushing back if you haven't done a really solid job in 0 to 7. So the first thing that I want to tell our listeners is, we have to learn to listen more. We teach too much, we preach too much, and we don't offer the modeling by which the child can shape themselves after. And that modeling starts with our capacity to listen more. So in Parenting by Connection, we talk about 5 listening tools. And there is a reason, and it's, of course, science-backed and evidence-based. There's a connection between connection and listening, because connection, which means a safe space between two people, it cannot happen unless one is able to do most of the listening. Why? Because a nervous system who is dysregulated, which is usually the child, or at first is the child, then the parent becomes dysregulated. But let's just say the child goes into a tantrum or an emotional episode, rage, uh, if we have a teenager, that's a dysregulated nervous system. What that child needs in that moment is someone who can hold that space for them. It doesn't matter how smart we are and how many life lessons we can teach, there is nobody there able to hear, because the brain is a machine and it's complicated. But when the emotion takes over, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for executive thinking, critical thinking, self-regulation, that goes offline. I want parents to imagine a light bulb that's being unplugged. It's dark. So that dysregulated nervous system can co-regulate in the presence of a regulated calm nervous system, which is ultimately the most important and only responsibility of a parent. So to go back to your question, that's how we can start making a difference today, is increasing our capacity to listen, which is very hard because parents are very sensitive. They're very fragile. They get triggered. Shame and self-blame kicks in. And then it becomes all about us, the parent. I do so much for you. Look at everything I do for you. I take you there. I do this. And it's all about us. So now we become the child who needs mommy or daddy to validate our sacrifices. And that's where self-parenting comes in. So I'm closing the loop. And self-parenting means the capacity to notice, not to fix, but to notice when I am shifting roles and I go from, or parts we call them also, and I go from the mature adult self-regulated brain in the room into the young child's dysregulated brain in the room. So it doesn't mean I'm doing something wrong. It doesn't mean something is wrong with me or that I am a bad parent for throwing myself upside down. But the capacity to notice the shift takes a lot of skill and a lot of internal work. Because when I notice the shift, I notice that I went from being the adult into myself now being the younger self. Then I can take a step back and I can apply immediate techniques and practices, which could be I excuse myself. I say to my child, I love you. I can see that we're going through a bit of a rough time right now. This is not about you. You did nothing wrong. Allow me to go to my room. I need to take 1 minute for myself and I will be right back. I will be with you and I'll continue listening and paying attention to your needs. But for 1 minute, I'm excusing myself. That's just one example. We can use breath. Breath is always available to us. We can use connecting to our belly, to our solar plexus, to our capacity to take air in, exhale. So there's a lot of things that we can do in the moment, only if we had the capacity to notice that we regressed from being the adult into being the child. Because then we have a child trying to parent a child, and our children notice the shift and they can't respect that. Because a child is fundamentally very self-focused, and there is an order of things in nature that's the right thing to do for them until they really become independent or more interdependent. But by no earlier than 18, we should expect full independence and self-regulation from our children.
So many useful tips and tricks. We could go on with this for quite some time. Unfortunately, we have to leave it at that. For those out there that are listening that are also experiencing some issues in their parenting, what's the best way they could reach out to connect with you? Please share maybe your website, your contact information. Let our listeners know how best to connect.
Yes. So if they go to my website, they can Google parentingmadeconscious.com. It will take them to my website or my name, mihaelaplugarasu.com. Either way, the first thing they will notice is a window that will pop up asking them to subscribe to my weekly newsletter, which is a free resource. I send that out every Saturday morning with a lot of tips and tools and recommendations and things like that. So that's the first thing. For all the moms who are listening, I want them to know that I host and facilitate a monthly women's circle on Zoom. And that's also free for all moms and women, all women, regardless of being a mother or not. So I welcome all women to join the women's circle on Zoom. And then they can buy my book if they have young children. And they can reach out to me with an email, a DM on Instagram, if they want to work with me one-on-one.
Wonderful. We will, of course, drop a link in the description below to all your contact information. Mihaela, truly appreciate the work that you're doing, touching so many people, clearly making an impact on our society. So thank you for everything that you do, truly.
Thank you, Jeremy. And thank you to everyone who's listening to your podcast. It's great.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We will catch everyone next time on the next episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Everyone take care. Have a lovely day. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast, Cooper City. To nominate your favorite local business to be featured on the show, go to gnpcoopercity.com. That's gnpcoopercity.com or call 954-231-3170.